Only got the save in game one, needed just 9 pitches, very sharp. A really, really good year.
Kelly Jansen, really good cutter.
Good evening, everyone. We're about to start this meeting. Buenas tardes a todos. Estamos listos para iniciar esta junta. It is now 6 o'clock, and we will call this called meeting of the Board of Trustees of the Roma Independent School District being held on this Thursday, October the 1st, 2020 to order. Let the record show that this meeting was duly posted according to the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. Agenda item number 1, roll call. Board Vice President, Mr. Juan Antonio Sainz.
Here.
Board Secretary, Mr. Dagoberto Salinas.
Here.
Board Member, Mrs. Leticia Garza Galvan. Board Member, Mr. Raul P. Moreno Jr.
Here.
Board Member, Mr. Ricardo A. Perez.
Here.
Board Member, Mr. Reynaldo Rodriguez.
Here.
And myself, Board President, Ms. Clarissa B. Alvarez. Let the record show that a quorum is present. Although we are not gathered in a central physical location, let the record show that we do have a quorum in attendance at this meeting by video conference. I just need to read a message of a notice here. Notice to school district regular meetings to be held by video conference and teleconference. For the benefit of the members of our community who are listening to the meeting either live or via a recording, I would like to make a few announcements. In response to the coronavirus COVID-19, on March 16, 2020, Texas Governor Greg Abbott temporarily suspended a limited number of open meetings laws. For the present time, school districts can conduct a board meeting via video conference or teleconference instead of holding face-to-face meetings. To promote proper social distancing and in the interest of maintaining the safety of Roma ISD employees, parents, students, and board members, the district has elected to conduct this meeting via video conference. Let the record reflect that the district has complied with all applicable Open Meetings Act posting requirements. Notice was posted both physically and online on the Roma ISD webpage or website for more than 72 hours before this meeting. For the purpose of our meeting tonight, please be advised of the following. At tonight's board meeting, board members are not gathered in a central physical location, but we do have a live quorum in attendance by video conference. Members of the board are meeting by use of Microsoft Zoom software application. Members of the public engaging in public comments will be provided access via Microsoft Zoom to allow for two-way communication. Zoom is available for download on your computer or smartphone. All members of the public will also have live access to the meeting via a live stream feed available on the district's website. This is a remote meeting, and we obviously cannot promise that these systems will be free of complications, but we generally anticipate that the systems will provide enough capacity to accommodate everyone. To avoid potential connection problems, I would also encourage all members of the public to make sure you are in a location with a secure internet or telephone signal. The district has provided notice that members of the public who wish to participate in public comments can register to do so by emailing the district in advance of the meeting. For anyone who registered in advance, you will receive an invitation to participate in the Zoom meeting at the appropriate point in the meeting and then afforded time to provide public comments. For future meetings conducted during the present emergency, the district may also allow members of the public to submit written comments in advance, which will be read by the board secretary into the record of the meeting. All other procedures regarding the conduct of this meeting will adhere to board adopted rules. Please be aware that a recording of this meeting will also be made available to the public as required. And if any person has any questions about the procedures associated with this board meeting, please feel free to contact the district. Agenda item number 2, public comments.
There are no public comments at this time.
Agenda item number 3, discuss and possible board action to ratify the extension of time for the approval of pending application Star Solar Ranch LLC, Texas Comptroller File Number 1438, for agreement for limitation on appraised value of property for school district maintenance and operations taxes. Mr. Kevin O'Hanlon?
Yes, ma'am. Before we get into the agenda item, let me make one statement. At the prior meeting, when we reached these topics, just to be careful, the board elected to pause that meeting and take it up at this time. The reason was to assure that all of our board members did not have any type of legally required conflict of interest statement that needed to be filed. Since last week, we've looked at this very carefully, and just to wrap up this issue so we can move forward, I just wanted to address this briefly. I did look at that issue with the board members, so we examined those questions. We looked at the laws and the relationship to that very, very carefully. After looking at those regulations, in all probability, and as I've advised the board members, I don't believe that either one has any legal duty to file a disclosure in this instance. However, they both went ahead and filed one anyway, out of an abundance of caution, out of a sense of transparency, and just to make sure that everything they were doing, to the extent there was any doubt, that they resolved that by disclosing. So they went ahead and did that. I just wanted to state on the record that they did look at it. Their filing of a disclosure should not be interpreted as any sort of statement that they necessarily feel that they needed to, because I don't believe they do. But they went ahead and did it anyway. So I just want to continue to commend my folks and the board members in Roma for being so upfront in the way they go about things. We did provide that list of property owners in this project to the other board members, and no one else could identify any sort of connection. So we did look into it very carefully. We resolved it. In a community like Roma, Texas, where we have a lot of folks that grow up here and stay here, and we've got a lot of family members in the area, it's very difficult to have a project like this without bumping into someone that may have some kind of family connection with somebody. So, and that's just the reality of it. So, but I think that everybody knows exactly what it is, and I just appreciate all of you.
Thank you.
If I can add just a couple of things, could we identify the individuals that filed the statements for the record, please, sir?
Yes, those two gentlemen that filed statements voluntarily are Mr. Ricardo Perez and Mr. Raul P. Moreno.
All right. And as a result of the filing, I want to ask the trustees whether they are intend to recuse themselves.
I am going to be abstaining from today's vote.
All right. Mr. Moreno?
Same here, sir.
All right. For purposes of I take it by the fact that only two did, that every other trustee here tonight does not, can affirm on the record that they do not have a conflict of interest. Can I get a roll call on that?
That is correct on my part.
Everybody else?
A roll call? That okay. I don't have any issues.
Okay, you have no conflict, Mr. Sines?
No, sir.
All right, thank you. Who else?
No conflict of interest.
Mr. Rodriguez? Is that everybody who hasn't spoken?
I have no conflict of interest or no connection to family or what have you. I'm
All right. So for purposes of that, if I can ask whoever keeps the records, the minutes of this is to summarize Mr. Weller's, for purposes of the minutes, Mr. Weller's remarks and the fact that we have two individuals that are going to abstain from the vote, and the rest have been asked a conflict of question and have found that there is no conflict. Could we have that included? In
Mr. O'Hanlon, I believe Miss Leticia Garza Galvan logged in at 6:07.
All right.
I believe so. She is, yeah, she is on here.
All right.
Yes, I don't have a conflict either, sir. Thank you.
So that
We've confirmed that with everybody.
yeah, can we have that? Can I have that? The conflicts and the not, or the potential conflicts and the non-conflicts recorded in the minutes, as well as the summary of Mr. Willard's comments.
Certainly.
All right. Thank you very much. The reason why I do that is the auditor comes back and checks to see whether or not there was a conflict of interest inquiry made at the meeting, and that's what we're doing with respect to that. So it will be reflected in our minutes, and then we don't have to fuss around with what people said or looking at what paperwork was on file. Recall, if you will, trustees, that as we left it, we closed the public hearing last week. The first thing that we need to do is item 3 on tonight's agenda, which is to extend the period of time for the board to act on the application. What happened is that according to your policy, this thing got dragged out a little bit. The superintendent granted an extension. That extension requires the superintendent has the authority to do that, but the superintendent's action needs to be approved by the board at a subsequent meeting. So the first item is we're asking for your approval to ratify the extension of time to tonight, so that we can resolve these matters.
This will move to approve item number 3 as presented by Mr. O'Hanlon.
I'll second the motion.
I have a motion by Mr. Sines, a second by Mr. Salinas. If no further discussion, I might take a vote. All raise your hand or say.
Aye.
Aye.
All those against? Okay, let me do that again. So everyone, it was 4 for it. All those against?
No, it was 5-4. 5 in favor.
5 in favor and 2 abstaining, correct?
That is correct.
Correct.
I'm abstaining.
And no one is voting against, okay? Because I have a little delay there going, I'm sorry. So again, for the record, I have 5 for it, 0 against, and 2 abstaining. Motion passes. Agenda item number 4. I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, I got ahead of you. I apologize. I'm ready with respect to
Okay, agenda item number 4.
Okay. The next item, item number 4, are the findings. Mr. Eden Ramirez went through those last week as part of the public hearing. All of the findings are supported by evidence that are attached to the finding document, either certifications by us or the controller's office or both. We've determined that the application is true and correct. So we're asking the board to adopt the findings as presented last Monday with respect to this agreement.
I so move, Madam President, to adopt the finding or item number 4 as presented.
Second it.
Okay, agenda item number 4, I'm just going to go ahead and read it for the record, and that is consideration and adopt findings under the Texas Economic Development Act on the application of the Solar Star Ranch LLC, Comptroller Application Number 1438 for an appraised value limitation on qualified property for school district maintenance and operation taxes. And I have a motion by Mr. Salinas, a second by Mr. Sines. If no further discussions or questions, all those in favor, raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
All those against, and those abstaining.
I'm abstaining.
And
So I have 5 for it, 0 against, and 2 abstaining. Motion passes. Agenda item number 5. Discussion and possible board action to consider the waiver of job creation requirement requested by Star Solar Ranches LLC. Again, Mr. O'Hanlon, go ahead.
Madam President, members of the board, thank you. The application is to waive. Normally in a project of this size, there's a job creation requirement of 10. There's a possibility of a waiver in those situations in which the number of jobs required for a project according to industry standards is less than a required 10. In the case before you tonight, that is the case. The company is asking for a waiver of job creation requirements down to 1. That does meet, given the size of the project and the configuration, that does meet industry standards. We are recommending that the board approve the waiver of the job requirement down to 1.
I have a question there, sir. So then I guess the jobs that will be required are going down to 1 instead of 10, or that's, I think, the only item that I had an issue with, because I think it happened to us also with the solar panels, where all of these jobs were promised, and then in the end it was just like, you know, a select few. So I mean, of course, you know, we want projects like these so that I guess there's opportunities for more work. Is this item, or does this item have to be approved if the rest is approved, or can this item be considered later, or can we get a little bit more information on it?
I can give you, we can discuss it. I believe company representatives are on as well and can discuss this. Let me tell you about the job waiver requirement and what that means. The job waiver requirement is it's the number of qualifying jobs. A qualifying job is a full-time job that is permanent during the course of this, and that will be 1 to kind of manage the project. There will be other employment associated with this project, both the construction, the access roads, the layout, and all of that, as well as a number of trades that will be necessary to service the project over its life. There will be the repairs that are necessary, various kinds of maintenance issues that are necessary, but given the nature of those, they don't fit the definition of a qualifying job because they are not permanent and they are not full-time. So that's what, it's not like the employment will be nil. It is that there's only 1 job that will meet the legal definition with respect to that. The answer that if we do not waive it, then you make the project probably difficult to complete. And the reason is that if we add that much more, this is a competitive market with respect to selling the electricity. If we add a bunch of jobs in there that their competitors are not required to do, it will raise up the cost of the electricity that's coming off this project, and nobody's going to buy it, which is going to essentially doom the project. So it is our recommendation that we grant it. I do understand that 1 job isn't very much, but that it has a particular definition. That doesn't mean the economic activities will be that narrow. It's just that we only have one job that meets that legal requirement.
So it doesn't, I mean, it doesn't necessarily means that by waiving that job creation, that we're not gonna hire any locals to do other work that you mentioned? Is that correct?
No, that in all likelihood, there will be local
Okay,
that do
all
that.
right.
Because
Mr. O'Hanlon, would we have an idea of how many positions would be open? I believe you named them, I guess, non-qualified positions?
well, there's one permanent job. There
Mhm.
will be a whole lot of jobs during construction.
Right,
Are the company representatives on?
I believe so.
We are.
Is there?
This is Troy Reed with Ernst and Young, and yes, there will be various other jobs available, and the project would like to source those jobs locally, and it'd be part-time, seasonal. But as Mr. O'Hanlon stated before, that these aren't going to be what's defined as a qualifying job. But that's just to say that there will be some job opportunities available. The project would like to source those jobs locally, and as long as there will be jobs available when the work is when it's deemed for additional work, whether it's part-time or other projects going around the actual facility that they'll hire locally.
Right, and that's perfectly understood, but my question was, do we have an idea of how many of these positions will be available out for our community members?
Bill, are you on? Do you want to answer that? Give us an idea.
Sure, a pleasure to speak with the board again, and thank you for the opportunity. Yeah, no, it's a difficult question to specifically say. So generally what happens is the operation and maintenance contracts are let nationally, and then those companies, which are very large companies that have the insurance capability for handling the liability of such things as cutting the grass. Doesn't sound like there's a lot of liability in that, but if you were to cut through the power cables, there's a significant expense. But then what generally happens is those national companies will put out a request for local labor to help facilitate that. So at a solar farm such as the one that's contemplated here, there's a fair amount of fencing, right? There's over 5 miles of fence, perimeter fence. So there's ranch work that is involved in that. There's vegetation control. Over 900 acres of grass or brush needs to be controlled. I would characterize them as, I live in McAllen, so I'm familiar with South Texas ranch operations, and would characterize those jobs as ranching type jobs, albeit inside a solar farm. I was trying to think about how many person hours that is to do the maintenance on a project like this. It's thousands of hours in a year that this would require the maintenance on.
So Ms. Alvarez, I think the answer that maybe Bill, is alluding to is that it's going to vary depending on, there's going to be a pretty standard level of upkeep that needs to be done. But as far as additional projects or additional, job opportunities that need to be brought in, that's going to be on a case-by-case basis. And I don't know on the onset if we can, firmly say that it's going to be, I'm just throwing numbers out, like 5 jobs, annually, but it is going to vary by the needs of the project. And, those jobs are, the project is going to try to source those jobs locally.
Based on
Madam
y'all's
President,
experience, I'm sorry. Mr. Salinas, just another question. Based on y'all's experience or prior experience, I'm sure this is not the first solar farm you all are going to be doing based on acreage and things like that. Obviously, you all have those numbers, mileage and all that. I guess what I'm looking for, is it 5 people? Is it 100 people? Is it 50? Just more or less, so that we have more or less an idea of what it is our community is looking out for, so that they can be ready, prepared, be on the lookout when these offers are there. Is it, I'm not sure. I mean, just a number that you more or less may know because of your previous farms, or what is it, solar panel projects you all have had.
Sure.
And,
So
President,
I have been, we're the applicant, Star Solar Ranch, is a member of Starr County Industrial Foundation, and I have been in contact with Rose Benavides in this regard, with regard to job training and what would be required. You know, there are several, I'll call it categories of work, right? So there's ranch work, as we just described it. There's electrical work, so the maintenance work that's involved in the inverters, which is a piece of equipment within this development. I would say that, and then there's also washing of the panels. That's a seasonal thing. It takes about, the panels get washed just with water and get squeegeed off. But you know, just to give you an example, on a project of this size, it would probably be a team of 4 to 5 people, and then 1 supervisor, and it would take, you know, 3 weeks to wash all the panels. And then depending on the rainfall of any given year, it sort of gets adjusted. The panels get washed once or twice a year. So there's some variability to it. I could appreciate how the board would want to sort of nail down a specific amount of time. But that's why I said, I mean, it's, you know, if you think about that, if you had 5 people working for 30 days and, you know, 8-hour a day, you know, 40, you know, you're looking at maybe several hundred hours just to wash the panels across the year. And it wouldn't necessarily have to be the same people on the subcontractor, the local people from the subcontracting perspective. And that's why in my conversations with Ms. Benavides at the foundation, trying to figure out how to have some job fairs. And I think that's already gone on for other companies, so that there's a pool of people that would be available. And it, you know, it's not just our project. I know that the county has several other large projects that are in the development process, and then also in our neighboring counties too, right? Hidalgo and Cameron are also considering several large solar farms. So, you know, there's the opportunity that if we could figure out, again, with the foundation's help, an education process. And also, I know she's, I don't believe she's no longer there, but the president of STC, Ms. Reed, when she was president there, I've also talked with her about how do you set up a work program where maybe everybody gets a certificate, and then they have the ability to show up at, again, like a job doesn't have to be our job. It could be a project that's close by, and then that employer would know that they've gone through a course in that regard. So anyway, I could appreciate the board's question, and a lot of thought has gone into trying to figure out how to make it work from a local perspective.
Okay, thank you.
A question for Mr. Weber. What would be the time frame of the project? I mean, just to get it going. I know you mentioned the cleaning of the brush, fencing, and all that. What would be the time frame on that particular? I mean, for that, for this particular project, do you have more or less an idea?
Sorry, Mr. Science, are you asking on the start of the project or the maintenance once the project's operating?
No. To start the project. What would be the time frame to finish the project, and then the maintenance I know is going to be after? But how long do y'all take to do the actual project?
Once the construction starts on a project of this size, it's 12 to 14 months, generally for the construction. There is some leeway with that with regard to AEP is the transmission provider in this project. They own the substation, and they are responsible ultimately for the equipment that's required for the interconnect to be completed. Not unlike the wind projects as well.
Okay.
And so we
at least a year.
Work would be done in 12 to 14 months.
Okay. All right. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Weber, I have a question.
Go ahead, Mr. Salinas.
I was gonna you answered the question as you were reading and discussing about the contracts. Isn't it better for the company or I mean, I don't know, I'm asking to get a contract that does the maintenance on other the maintenance on other panels around the South Texas? Don't you guys hire those same people that come in, the contractors that come and do the maintenance on these here that they're gonna build here in Stark County?
I hope not.
That was a question for Mr. Weber.
Sure, Mr. Salinas, thank you for the question. So we have not let any of the contracts yet, and ultimately, in this industry, it's called an EPC contractor. So that's the sort of the top contractor in the process, and then they would have subs below them. So that has not been done yet. So I couldn't tell you, nobody's been chosen, but again, I've actually taken calls, and I know that Ms. Benavides has been contacted by not only what we're talking about, which is really jobs after the fact, right? After the construction, but I know I've spoken to several local brush clearing operations or operators that are interested in clearing that. It has to be cleared with a dozer and then root plowed at least once. So we're keeping a list of those people, names and contact information, and that will be passed on to the EPC contractor once that entity is chosen.
Real quick, I know I've been abstaining, but I'd rather keep jobs here within our community instead of having somebody being contracted out. That's just me.
Exactly. I was about to say the same thing. Why would we want to get these, bigger corporations to come in and do these projects when those are the jobs that supposedly we're going to offer to our locals? So I hope that we don't, or that the project doesn't. I know that it's going to have nothing to do really with Roma ISD, or Roma ISD will not have, I guess, any say so, because it's not really a project for Roma ISD that we're approving. I think that it's more about just like a tax abatement or something like that. Then that was going to be my question, actually. What is the benefit for Roma ISD? Is it very similar to the wind farms from a few years back? I know the very first project was a bit more. I think we got a check for about 1.9 million. And then the second one that was approved, I don't think that the deal was pretty or wasn't similar to the first one. I think it was a lot less. Is this solar panel project, is this, I get, what's the benefit? Let's just ask that. What is the benefit to Roma ISD?
Mr. Weber, I'm sorry, just real quick before we go interrupt. I know that what Mr. Salinas was saying right now, it wasn't because he's kind of discussed it. He kind of mentioned it to me, and I guess what we were kind of talking about, I guess what he's mentioning is because he works for TxDOT, and I guess he sees other companies, and he had mentioned to us that he had seen other companies that do contract work, and I guess that's why he was bringing it up, because he was asking us. He goes, "Do you think that they're going to hire or are they going to hire one of those companies, or are they going to hire local?" And I think that's what he was referring to. It's not that he doesn't want our locals to get the job. I think that he was just asking that because he's seen it where he works. So that's
We don't want that to happen.
that he's asking us for.
Where was
And for the
this
record,
discussed?
yes, yeah, for the record, I'm sorry, Ms. Galvan. And for the record, yes, I'm for the local employees, but I was just, comparing, like Mr. Moreno says, at our agency, it's a lot easier and some jobs to hire a contractor that does work here, does work over there, everywhere. So I was just kind of, comparing, the jobs that the contractors do. But I'm for the local people that, that they need the job here.
I'm sorry, Mr. Salinas, do you want me to comment on that or not?
That's fine, sir, if you wish, but I'm pretty sure that you all have contractors in other areas that you all have, this solar panels and if you can talk and you can say what what you wish, but I'm just comparing, the job that agencies hire contractors and instead of teaching new people to learn the system or the maintenance. Thank you.
I mean, and again, I guess what he's trying to say, sir, is please consider our locals and not if we can avoid hiring these big contractors or these big companies or I guess corporations to come and do the work that some of our locals could be trained to do, please consider that. I mean, again, I know Roma ISD will have no say so, but I just hope that is considered so that we are able to offer more jobs here in our area.
Yes, so like I mentioned, I'm local as well, right? I'm not in Star. I'm in Hidalgo County. I live in McAllen. Married a lady from McAllen. Actually, her dad was on the city commission in McAllen when he was alive. But so I can appreciate hiring local, and I think it's important. I could give you an example. We've hired local engineers already. So what happens generally, and I'm sure you've experienced this with maybe some of the contracts at the school and then also certainly with the wind contractors, some of these very large projects have insurance and bonding requirements that are, tens of millions of dollars. And it's very difficult for, a 1, 2 person, 3 person shop to meet those conditions. But what we have been able to do, and so this project has that same sort of limitation, right? So but what I can give you an example of is, so on the survey work, again, large national firm that did the survey called, that you're familiar with, right? An ALTA survey, ALTA. But we had a lot of for instance, we had some questions about different ownership on the property. So we actually hired and I don't know if I'm allowed to disclose the name, but we hired a local surveyor. They have an office in Rio Grande City as an example, probably could figure that out. And to do the survey work on a bunch of smaller projects. And then their survey work gets incorporated into the national company's work. So if there were ever to be a problem with the survey work, right? If there were ever to be what you never want to talk about bad things, right? But we'll just talk about why it's this way. If there were ever a lawsuit on the survey, it's the liability of the national company that takes up that slack, and not the smaller, generally smaller, in this case, smaller local company. So the project's already hired local from the standpoint of some surveying work. So, and I can appreciate the desire for that. And again, on another situation, when we did a drone flight, again, this has to do with the survey work, and I can stop talking as soon as the board's tired of me. But again, the national company hired a gentleman. Actually, he came from Harlingen. I remember that because I waited longer than I thought to have him to open the gates. But so again, Harlingen and Cameron County, not exactly Starr County, but close in a relative kind of thing. So I do appreciate the board members' desire to have local. It is important to me personally. I think it's important to Caprock and of course the project company, which is Star Solar Ranch LLC. But it is difficult for me to say today that everyone's local, because I think based on what I know of the requirements and what I've seen in projects, not only in Texas, but across the United States, outside the United States as well, the insurance and bonding requirements are sometimes substantial. And that's why you see the larger international companies get the quote unquote top line job. But I do believe you'll find local employment in this project as well.
Thank you.
If
Any
no
other
other-
questions?
If no other discussion, I would like to approve item number 5 as presented.
I second, Madam President.
Do I have a second?
Madam President, before we go on, I had asked a question and I know we jumped into another one. And I don't know, I guess who can answer what the benefit is for Roma ISD by approving this project.
All right, in the next item, item number 6, we're going to talk about the agreement, the terms of the agreement. Dan Casey is going to run through the finances with you based on the spreadsheet. He's standing by.
Okay, then we can vote.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you.
So we have a motion by Mr. Sines, a second by Mr. Salinas. If no further discussion, do I have all those in favor, raise your hand or say aye?
Aye.
All those, okay, all those that was, I didn't see Mr. Sines. Tony?
I'm in favor.
Okay, so that was 5 for it. How many against? No one against? And abstaining? We have 2. So it's 5 for it, 0 against, and 2 abstaining. Motion passes. Thank you. Agenda item number 6, consider and approve agreement with Star Solar Ranch LLC, Comptroller application number 1438 for the appraised value limitation on qualified property for school district maintenance and operation taxes. Mr. O'Hanlon?
Thank you. Mr. Casey is standing by and he can walk through with Mo Casey, who did the financial analysis of this project, and he will walk through the financial terms for you. And then if you have questions, I'll speak after him with respect to the specifics of the agreement that you might have. But Mr. Casey's got the finances. Dan? Dan, we can't hear you. Not yet.
It's muted. Well,
Now we can. No?
nope.
Yeah?
Probably the volume.
We can see your mouth moving. Your volume, your mute's off, but I can't, your volume is too low. Nope.
And I'm a text.
All right. So, let me, you should have a spreadsheet in your packages. Do you have that? My copy. It says Mo Casey on it. Do y'all have that document? Dan, can you hear us? Okay, we cannot speak.
I just sent Dan an email saying we can't hear him, so.
All right. Give me one, if he doesn't come on, in the next 60 seconds or so, I'll go through the numbers. I think I just heard you for a second.
Okay, let's try it. How about now?
There.
There it is.
Yay! This is first time I seem to do this every third meeting, and I'm bang my head on the desk after the meeting. So for about half an hour before I go home, I apologize. So anyway, let me give you the highlights of this real quickly. This is a project in terms of peak value in the 2022-23 year. Almost $78 million in additional taxable value. And look at what we had for your current tax. That's probably about a 15% increase in your overall tax base. But what they are applied for and asking for is a $25 million limitation that would be in place for up to 10 years. Now, given the scale of the project and solar projects depreciate fairly quickly, the limitation would actually be in effect for 7 years. The gross tax savings about $2.3 million over those 7 years as far as the M&O tax savings. The thing is that one of the things we have, as far as what we know out of that 2.3 million right now, under current law and current school finance law, and we still see these numbers wiggle around some under House Bill 3. But we're showing potentially revenue protection payments of up to $1.2 million that would be made to the district in 22, 23, and 23, 24 would be split over those 2 years. So 1.2 million. And then the other aspect of this, we have in column I on these sheets, supplemental payments that Mr. O'Hanlon negotiated for you. 40% of any tax savings would come to you as supplemental payments. So you asked about the benefits. Really, the clear benefits at $507,000 we're indicating based on what we know now. So that's money that you can use for any purpose. As things stand, there's no state aid chargeback or recaps or anything on those funds. So this is one in terms of benefits. This is quite generous. If the whole harmless payments hold up at the 1.2 million, you got $507,000. That's more than 70% of the benefits coming back to the district. So that's more generous than most of these that we see. But I think that this is one that's got pretty good potential for you if it's built and given what we know now about school finance law right now, this looks like a good package.
In addition to that, the additional value that goes on your appraisal rolls will be fully taxable for debt service purposes. So
yeah, Kevin, let me qualify that a little bit, because the one thing that the change to move to current year values kind of nicked you as far as some benefits on that, because we didn't, with the analysis we ran, you are collecting those additional taxes, but it may offset IFA or EDA. So you may not see as strong a benefit on the INS side. Although I still think with where we're at in terms of state funding, at this point, anything you do to add to your tax base is better than not adding to your tax base. You know, that's just.
That was weird.
Not me.
Are there questions with respect to the financial terms? So even though let me say briefly that even though what Dan has handed is a series of projections, basically we all know that state law can change those projections. It's important to point out that for each year of this agreement, when we do the actual, the agreement itself doesn't try and guess or predict future changes in the school finance system. So that for each year of the agreement, we are going to make a calculation of the amount of money that the district would have achieved or made from the tax base assuming that it would not have entered into this agreement, to see how much that would have been. And then we're going to run the same calculation net of this agreement. And if there's a difference, the company will make it up. So you're not going to, if the school finance system changes, we're not trying to predict it or outguess the state, because that's a fool's errand with respect to what the legislature is likely to do to us, so that we're comfortable that that you're not going to make a mistake by doing this and get into a deal that's going to have an unanticipated adverse effect on the district itself. So we're comfortable with that. We've been doing these things since 2003. Actually, the first one we inked was in 2002. It was effective in 2003. We haven't had districts lose money on these yet. So we're comfortable saying that you're not going to make a mistake that's going to get you in trouble the next time you go to the Dairy Queen or something of that nature, or the coffee shop or something of that. So you'll be comfortable that we think you're going to make some extra additional money, as Dan showed in the printout over that, with little risk to the little risk to your taxpayers from doing this.
Well,
based on that, we recommend that you approve the agreement.
Okay. Any further questions or discussion?
If not, ma'am, I so move to approve the agreement, item number 6, as presented by Mr. Casey and O'Hallen, of course.
Do I have a second?
I second, Madam President.
If no further discussions or comments, questions, I will put this into a motion, or there is a motion, put it into a vote.
Madam President, I just
Yes.
I would like to make a statement before we go to a vote, and that is regarding my reason for abstention. This, just to clarify things and for the record, I would like to say that I elected to voluntarily disclose and abstain voluntarily for reasons related to transparency, and not due to any belief that I am technically required to do so. My brother-in-law, Richard L. Guerra, and my sister and his sons, Richard L. Guerra Jr. And Joseph E. Guerra, they own interests in La Anacua Ranch. And that is the entity that is the record title owner of property that is leased to Star Solar LLC related to the proposed solar panel project. So following conferral with legal counsel, it is my understanding that the filing of this conflicts disclosure statement does not appear to be required in this instance. However, out of an abundance of caution and in the interest of transparency, I have elected to voluntarily file this conflicts disclosure statement. The filing of this conflicts disclosure statement should not be construed as any form of acknowledgement on my part that it was required. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Perez.
Thank you, Mr. Bettis. And
Just for the record, I turned in the same thing that reads the same thing.
yeah, Mr. Bettis, I'm sorry we didn't, we moved on before you had a chance to reach that, speak that earlier. But thank you for those, for that clarification. Appreciate that.
Okay, so again, if no further discussion or comments or questions, we have a motion by Mr. Sines, a second by Mr. Salinas. All those in favor, raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
All those against and those abstaining. So we have 5 for it, 0 against, and 2 abstaining. Motion passes. Thank you. Agenda item number 7, consideration possible action of possible resignation of early voting clerk and deputy clerk, Mr. Garza.
Yes, good evening, Madam President, trustees, Mr. Guzman, and guests. On September the 24th, the Board of Trustees appointed Mr. Osiel Garza as the early voting clerk and Nestor Cruz as the deputy clerk to process the applications for ballots by mail. Both individuals are not going to be able to serve in these positions. Therefore, I respectfully ask for the board to consider accepting the resignation of both individuals.
I so move to approve the resignation as presented.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Science and a second by Mr. Moreno. If any further discussion or questions? All those in favor, raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
All those against? That was 7 for it, 0 against. Motion passes. Agenda item number 8, consideration possible action on selection of early voting clerk and deputy clerk. Mr. Garza.
Yes, ma'am. At this time, I'm respectfully asking for the board to consider appointing an early voting clerk and a deputy clerk to process the applications for ballot by mail.
Mr. Garza, I so move to appoint Mrs. Janie Castillo as, and Lisa Cantu as her alternate or as the deputy.
Lisa Cantu and Janie Castillo.
Miss Janie Castillo, yes, and Lisa Cantu as the alternate or deputy.
I'll second that motion.
I have a question before we move on. Mr. Garza,
Yes, ma'am.
okay, so these people are being recommended. I would hope that they haven't been contacted yet, right? They'll probably be contacted after today's meeting or tomorrow, or when are you going to contact these individuals?
If the board approves these two individuals, I'll make contact with them tomorrow morning, ma'am.
Okay, so then when would you hold the training, Mr. Garza?
I already called the county and I asked if there was a possibility they could train these individuals tomorrow afternoon due to the fact that the individual that does the training, she works in the county at the election office. She stated that there's a possibility, but that she might have another training. If she cannot do it, let's say tomorrow in the afternoon, and then she'll do it on Monday morning. I mean, on Monday afternoon.
Mr. Garza, did you read the statute that says that the ballots need to be mailed the 30 days before an election?
There's no statute indicating when you're supposed to mail the ballots, ma'am. October the 23rd, which is 11 days before the election, we can still receive applications. There's no statute indicating that we're supposed to mail the ballot by a specific time.
I'll send it to you, Mr. Garza. As soon as we're out of the meeting, I have it.
And I do have a statement from the Secretary of State, ma'am, indicating that there's no statute indicating that a deadline in submitting those ballots.
Okay, that's fine, Mr. Garza. I'll send it to you. I have it. It's one of the election codes or something.
I can go to the courthouse, but go ahead, ma'am.
Yes, I'll go ahead and check that. In regards to Ms. Castillo and Lisa, I think both of them have experience. Do they still need the training? I mean, Ms. Castillo, and she's a very good choice. I'm glad because she's been a precinct chair for the area of Salineño, and I think she's run several elections, so she knows what the job entails. So, I guess that being said, does she need to go through the training as well, or what's going to happen there?
I will highly recommend for them to go through the training. I don't know when this individual, if she went through this training, I'm not too sure, but I will highly recommend for her to go through the training, for both individuals to go through the training. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Garza.
Anytime, ma'am.
I have a motion by Mr. Moreno, second by Mr. Science. If no further discussion, all those in favor, raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
All those against? I'm sorry, Mr. Rodriguez, I didn't see your vote or hear.
Aye.
It's locked.
You're for it?
I'm going for it.
Okay. So it's 7 for it, 0 against, and no abstains. No one abstained. Motion passes. Thank you. Agenda item number 9. Consideration possible action of possible resignation of the voting judge and the alternate judge for the old intermediate gym and the Escobares Community Center site. Mr. Garza?
Yes, ma'am. On September the 24th, the Board of Trustees appointed Mr. Ociel Garza as the early voting judge and Ms. Esther Cruz as the alternate judge for the Roma site. Also, the trustees appointed Yaramin Montemayor as the early voting judge and Elodia Cruz as the alternate judge for the Escobares site. These four individuals are not going to serve in this capacity. Therefore, I'm respectfully asking for the board to consider all four resignations.
I move to approve the resignation as presented by Mr. Garza.
Mr. Garza, all four? I'm
Second.
sorry, Mr. Sainz. I'm sorry,
All
go
four.
ahead.
All for the other two and then these two.
That's why all four of them, they just notified you today, Mr. Garza?
They didn't notify me today, ma'am, but they notified Mr. Guzman and one of the board members, so they're not gonna be able to serve, all four, ma'am. So I was just
That-
informed today.
Okay, they just informed you today, sir?
Me personally, yes.
Do you have it in writing?
I don't have it in writing. It was a verbal resignation, all four.
Do we need it in writing?
I can ask
You
for.
usually do. You usually require, I mean, from my experience working with you, Mr. Garza, you've always been, requesting all this in writing and like that. I mean, even if they told you since Monday, I understand that you asked for a written, I guess, resignation. I'm just, just for precautions, do we need to have one or no?
I want to make something clear. I was not told on Monday. If you look at the agenda item, and I worded the agenda item like that, and I used the word possible because as of Monday, we were not too sure if these individuals were going to resign. So on Monday, I was not aware that they were going to resign. So that was the word. That was the reason that I used that term, possible resignation. So I was not aware that they were going to be resigning at that time, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Garza.
But I will ask for a letter, for the record.
No, I'm just asking if we need it. I don't know if we do need it. I'm just asking if you would need it.
And again, Mr. Garza, I'm sure you know what you need and what you don't need. So again, like always, we know that you will be doing what you need to be doing. So with that said, I have a motion by Mr. Sainz, and did I have a second?
I don't think so.
Yes,
Mr.
Mr. Salinas,
Salinas.
Dago Salinas, I think made the second.
Salinas?
Yes,
And if no
I
further
second, Madam President.
discussion, thank you. I'll go ahead and we'll put this into a vote. All those in favor say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
All those against? Motion passes. That's 7 for it, 0 against. Thank you, Mr. Garza.
Yes, ma'am.
Agenda item number 10. Consideration, possible action on selection of the early voting judge and alternate judge for the Old Intermediate Gym and the Escobares Community Center site. Mr. Garza?
Yes, ma'am. At this time, I'm respectfully asking for the board to consider appointing an early voting judge and an alternate judge for the Roma site and the early voting judge and an alternate judge for the Escobares site.
I so move to approve the two individuals from the early voting clerks, Ms. Jenny Castillo and Lisa Cantu for the Roma gym. And then for the Escobares Community Center, I move to approve Lucila Canales Garza and the alternate Dacia Maria Fernandez.
What is the first name, sir?
Dacia Maria Fernandez.
The first one you mentioned, Mr. Sainz, I didn't get, Lucila.
Canales Garza.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Okay, if we have no further discussion, do I have well, I guess the motion was Mr. Sainz. Do I have a second? I'm sorry, but Mr. Sainz, that was a recommendation. Was that also a motion?
Yes, it was a motion.
Okay.
Yes.
And do I have a second?
Second.
I second.
I have a motion by Mr. Sainz, a second by Mr. Moreno. I have no further discussion. All those in favor, raise your hand or say aye.
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 All those against? We have 7 for it, 0 against. Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Garza. Agenda item number 11, number
11.
8, no, is it 11? I
11.
guess, yeah, I moved, yeah. Employment and resignation of professionals and paraprofessionals, Mr. Guzman?
There are no changes from what was presented on board book. I believe only one
One
recommendation.
employee.
Correct.
I so move to approve item number 11 as presented by Mr. Guzman.
Okay.
Well, Mr. Guzman, I'm sorry, I didn't get a chance to see board book. What, I don't need a name, just what position is it?
It's the nurse, registered nurse.
Okay,
Replacing somebody, right, sir?
yes.
It's replacing it, Ms. Arellano. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Guzman.
So we have a motion by Mr. Science, a second by Mr. Moreno. All those in favor, raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
All those against? 7 for it, 0 against. Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Guzman. Agenda item number 12, adjournment.
I so move to adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Moreno, a second by Mr. Science. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those against? 7 for it, 0 against. Motion passes. Meeting adjourned at 7:05. And everyone enjoy your evening. Thank you.
Thank
you.
Everybody, take care, be safe.
Thanks very much.
You
Thank you. Thanks a
too.
lot.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.